Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Central Asia Program seminar. It's very nice to see, actually, that we have an audience from very different continents. My name is Sebastian Peruz. I'm a research professor with the Central Asia Program at the IRIS at George Washington University. We are extremely happy to have today Jill Neuendorf, Jill will be presenting on Kazakhstan's policy on multilingualism. I won't repeat all the biography quoted in the event announcement, but I would like to emphasize here that Jill has a tremendous experience in researching and in teaching Russian and English. She spent many years abroad teaching and researching. She lived 7 years in Russia, Ukraine, and Moldova. Jill earned a PhD from Bryn Mawr College in second language acquisition and Russian. Jill is now assistant teaching professor at Georgetown University. She's been at Georgetown University for 10 years now. And prior to her appointment there, she taught at the University of Maryland, Bryn Mawr College, and Swarthmore College. Jill has many research interests, including identity and second language acquisition, Russian heritage speakers, and study abroad and language gain. So I'll give the floor to Jill now. What I would like to add is that after Jill's presentation, we'll of course have a Q&A session. So please send your questions in the Q&A box you see on the right part of your screen. So Jill, thank you so much for being with us today, and the floor is yours. Or I should say the WebEx is yours. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, for the very warm welcome. And I'd also like to say a very heartfelt thank you to the Central Asia Program and the Institute for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies at George Washington University for organizing seminars such as the one that I'm going to give today that bring together individuals from all over the world who are interested in topics related to Central Asia. I'm very excited to share my presentation with everyone today. So let's begin. The topic of my presentation is Kazakhstan's Trinity of Languages Program, a model of success or failure. The next slide, please, Jeanette. I'd like to begin by first giving you some background information. In 2011, then President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, stated, quote, "I always say that knowing 3 languages is essential for the success of every Kazakhstani. Our goal is to raise the number of citizens speaking the state language up to 80% by 2017. I think by 2020, number of Kazakhstanis speaking English should reach 20%, unquote. Therefore, one of the primary goals of the Trinity of Languages program is for citizens of Kazakhstan to be proficient in 3 languages, Kazakh, Russian, and English. Next slide, please. The system of a trilingual education reform began in Kazakhstan in 2011 and is supposed to continue there until the end of this year, 2020. And it has called for significant changes in the grades in which primary and secondary school students learn subjects in Kazakh, Russian, and English. Beginning last year, for example, 2019, 10th and 11th grade students began studying chemistry, physics, biology, and computer science in English. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight a few of the advantages of the Trinity of Languages program. Of course, the greatest advantage, I would say, to the program is that students would be proficient in 3 languages, in Kazakh, in Russian, and in English. And because of their proficiency in these 3 languages, they would then be academically mobile to freely move about in international space, as well as in the culture and traditions of different peoples. And if Kazakhstan's future leaders are fluent in English, this will benefit not only the country of Kazakhstan as a whole, but its economical development in particular. Next slide, please. However, there are disadvantages of the Trinity of Languages program as well as advantages. One of the most serious disadvantages of it is a lack of teachers who can teach courses in the sciences in English, especially in rural areas of Kazakhstan. There are also problems with how to assess exams that are given in English, student issues, for example, of a psychological nature. That is, some students have difficulty switching from one language to another, as well as linguistic pedagogical issues. For example, students enter high school in Kazakhstan and have to study the sciences in English, but perhaps their English language proficiency is not adequate for them to do that. Next slide, please. There's also a lack of literature for some courses that are taught in English, a lack of professional training sessions for non-English speaking teachers who now have to teach their subject in English. And there's also the fear that perhaps the Kazakh language will have a lower status and not be adequately developed. Next slide, please. In the summer of 2019, I conducted qualitative research with 10 individuals from Almaty in order to learn how they regard the Trinity of Languages program. And next slide, please. And now a few words about my participants. The individuals who took part in my research were, as you see, 6 instructors of Russian as a foreign language at Al-Farabi Kazakh National University, 2 instructors of Kazakh as a foreign language at the same university, 1 individual who defended his PhD at that same university in foreign philology in May of last year, and 1 individual who teaches history at a high school in Almaty. 2 interviewees are male, 8 female, and they range in age from 28 to 74. Next slide, please. I asked all of my participants the following 7 questions. Number 1, have you heard of the Trinity of Languages program? Number 2, in your opinion, what are some advantages of the Trinity of Languages program? Number 3, what do you consider to be some of its negative aspects? And number 4, some experts regard this program highly, saying that thanks to the Trinity of Languages program, Kazakhstani students can improve their reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills in English. However, others are of a different opinion and think that teachers of physics, chemistry, biology, and computer science do not know English well enough to teach their subject in English. With which side do you agree and why? Next slide, please. Question number 5, do you think that students may have difficulty studying the sciences in English? If yes, which steps, in your opinion, should the government of Kazakhstan take so that the teachers who teach courses in the sciences in English have a better control, that is, understanding of that language? Number 6, since students will spend a great amount of time studying English and Russian, do you think it is possible that their command of Kazakh may worsen? And number 7, if yes, you do fear this may happen, which steps should the government of Kazakhstan take in order to make sure that children retain a strong command of the Kazakh language? My goal for interviewing these individuals was to answer 2 research questions. Number one, what are the factors that contribute most significantly to the success or failure of the Trinity of Languages program? And number two, keeping in mind the factors that will impact upon the ultimate success or failure of the program, do its projected results, that is to have Kazakhstani school children and university students be fluent in Kazakh, Russian, and English, seem realistic? Why or why not? Now I'd like to go through and show you how my participants answered my research questions. Again, my first question was, have you heard of the Trinity of Languages program? Of course, my participants had all heard of it and they all answered yes. So the second question, once again, in your opinion, what are some advantages of the Trinity of Languages program? My participants listed the following advantages that they think the program has. First of all, it benefits not only the young people in Kazakhstan, but also Kazakhstan itself. Young people in Kazakhstan will know not only Kazakh and Russian well, but also English. The program creates opportunities for young people from Kazakhstan to travel and study abroad at any university where one or perhaps more of these three languages are used. They will have a broader worldview, and Kazakhstan will become, quote, a more competitive player on the global market, unquote, and thus be more attractive to foreign investors. Question number three, what do you consider to be some of the program's negative aspects? My participants stated the following negative aspects of the program: a lack of qualified specialists who can teach their subject, be that biology, chemistry, physics, etc., in English. Some of my respondents fear that the Kazakh language may suffer because of the program. They also stated there are inadequacies with tests, and that is that some subjects that are taught in English are then tested in Russian, and this for the Unified National Examination. And this means that students study a subject in English, but then they must relearn the material in Russian so that they can take the test in the Russian language. They also stated there are inadequacies with teaching materials, that is not enough textbooks, materials, teaching aids. And they also mentioned that some students simply have difficulty learning foreign languages. Next slide, please. Question number four, some experts regard this program highly, saying that thanks to the Trinity of Languages program, Kazakhstani students can improve their reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills in English. However, others are of a different opinion and think that teachers of physics, chemistry, biology, and computer science do not know English well enough to teach their subject in English. With which side do you agree and why? 6 of my respondents agreed that teachers, in their opinion, in Kazakhstan do not know English well enough to teach their discipline in that language. 4 individuals agreed partially with their colleagues or had a slightly different opinion. Of those 4 respondents, 1 person stated that teachers need a significant amount of time to learn the vocabulary that is specific to the discipline that they teach. They also said there needs to be concrete and definite methodology in place before certain subjects can be taught in English. Next slide, please. Question number 5, do you think that students may have difficulty studying the sciences in English? If yes, which steps, in your opinion, should the government of Kazakhstan take so that the teachers who teach courses in the sciences in English have a better control of that language? 6 individuals answered yes. They do think that students may have difficulty studying the sciences in English. 2 said no, they do not worry about this, and 2 simply had difficulty answering. Several of my respondents thought that the government of Kazakhstan should offer special training sessions or courses for teachers of the sciences in English-speaking countries, be that Great Britain, the United States, Canada, Australia, wherever, so that teachers from Kazakhstan could then visit the classes of their foreign colleagues in, for example, the United States or in Canada or in Great Britain. They also thought that students should be taught material in the sciences according to their proficiency level in English. And they stated that textbooks need to be written in English for each discipline that are appropriate to the student's English language proficiency level. Next slide, please. One respondent stated that in order to have highly qualified specialists in Kazakhstan, the government of Kazakhstan should open departments in universities to train today's students who are, say, going to be teachers of physics, chemistry, computer science in the future, so that they are able to teach their discipline in English. So they should be taught right now to be able to do that in the future. Another individual thought that students should intensively study English in Kazakhstan from first through third grade. This will give them a good grammar base and they will learn a lot of English vocabulary. And then by fifth grade, their knowledge of English grammar and vocabulary would be satisfactory so that they could begin to study subjects in English. One respondent, however, who said no, she does not worry that students may have difficulty studying the sciences in English, explained that in Kazakhstan, students are used to learning English because they have a, quote, sufficient number of English language classes, unquote. Next slide, please. Question number 6, since students will spend a great amount of time studying English and Russian, do you think it is possible that their command of Kazakh may become worse? 4 interviewees answered yes, 5 no, and 1 said maybe. Those who replied yes, they do worry about about students' proficiency level in Kazakhstan becoming worse, explained they fear that Kazakh will get, quote, pushed to the background, unquote, and forced, quote, to take a backseat to Russian and English, unquote. They also stated that it is possible for example, children in Kazakhstan to turn on their television and hear programs in Russian, hear cartoons in Russian, go outside and play with other children and hear Russian. However, they said this, unfortunately, this is not the case with Kazakh because it is more difficult to hear it outside spoken on city streets, and there are less television programs broadcasted in Kazakh. Next slide, please. Those respondents who said no, they do not worry, think that Russian and Kazakh are not competing, and just because students know, for example, Russian well, that does not mean that this will negatively impact upon their knowledge of Kazakh. And they also explained that today parents in Kazakhstan want their children to learn the Kazakh language because they associate it with both with their children's successful future and with the future of Kazakhstan as a whole. Next slide, please. Question number 7, if students' command of Kazakh does indeed worsen, which steps do you think the government of Kazakhstan should take in order to make sure that children retain a strong command of the Kazakh language? My participants who answered yes to the previous question and worry about the state of the Kazakh language in the future provided the following suggestions. They think that there should be textbooks in Kazakh, that world literature should be translated into the Kazakh language. They also think that kindergartens, schools, and universities in Kazakhstan should have state-of-the-art equipment, and this will allow students more opportunities to use the Kazakh language, to hear, to practice Kazakh. They also said that they think it is important for all citizens of Kazakhstan to first learn the Kazakh language well, and then they think it would be useful after this for the government to implement the Trinity of Languages program. Looking again then at my research questions, the first one, once again, what are the factors that contribute most significantly to the success or failure of the Trinity of Languages program? First of all, a lack of qualified specialists who can teach their scientific discipline in English. This is especially true in rural areas of Kazakhstan and among teachers who are retirement or pre-retirement age. Number two, questions about the age at which it is best to begin teaching students in 3 languages, especially when one of those languages, that is English, is a true foreign language for them. Number 3, issues about how to teach students in 3 languages for whom language learning does not come easily. Next slide, please. Number 4, whether or not enough attention will be paid to the Kazakh language and to producing students who are not just able to communicate using colloquial Kazakh, but can also speak and write that language at an academic level. Number 5, whether or not the government of Kazakhstan and its citizens have enough patience to wait 10, perhaps more than 10 years to see how effective the program actually is. And number 6, a readiness and willingness by the government of Kazakhstan to shoulder such a tremendous financial burden as will take to fund the Trinity of Languages program. Next slide, please. And my second research question, once again, keeping in mind the factors that will impact upon the ultimate success or failure of the Trinity of Languages program, do the projected results of the program, that is to have Kazakhstani school children and university students be fluent in Kazakh, Russian, and English, seem realistic? Why or why not? My answer is the projected results of the program do seem realistic if, number 1, if training sessions and courses are offered for teachers of the sciences, and preferably in countries where English is a native language. If this is not possible, then have native English-speaking teachers of the sciences go to Kazakhstan, teach their colleagues English language vocabulary that they need to be able to teach physics, chemistry, computer science in English. Also, if young children first learn, for example, conversational English from 1st through 3rd grade, and then they begin studying subjects in English later in the 5th grade. If textbooks are written for each discipline that is taught in English and geared toward the students' English language proficiency level. Next slide, please. If there are after-school tutoring sessions for students who have difficulty learning subjects and switching between Russian, Kazakh, and English so that they can get some additional help. Also, if departments are open to train future pedagogues to be able to teach their subject, their scientific discipline in English. And if textbooks are provided in Kazakh, world literature is translated into that language, and there are more children's television programs broadcast on television in Kazakh. If, I repeat, if those steps are taken, then I think that the program does indeed have the potential to be successful. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, for this very interesting and very rich presentation, which shows, I mean, all the complexity and difficulty, of course, to develop such such a policy on multilingualism. So we have questions, of course, and we have a first set of questions which is focusing on the reactions, the views of ethnic minorities on this multilingualism program, with some questions like, did Kazakh participants and Russian participants respond differently when you conducted your interviews? And what is the feeling among non-Kazakhs about learning Kazakh? And what about education in minority languages such as Uzbek, Uyghur, Tajik? So I have some participants who are asking you if you tackled or if you came across this issue during your research in Kazakhstan.
Let me start with the last question, Sebastian. No, I did not come across any discussion related to minority languages while I was speaking with my participants. As far as you stated, the first question was either Russian and Kazakh participants answered differently.
Yes.
Well, my Kazakh participants, and by the way, I should state that although two of them teach Kazakh, all of the individuals with whom I spoke use Kazakhstan in one way or another, either at home or with, for example, colleagues. So they know the Kazakh language, even though they teach Russian. And I thought that the participants who teach Kazakh were, as one would expect, more concerned about the status of the Kazakh language, and perhaps becoming lower because of this Trinity of Languages program. But on the other hand, participants who teach Russian were also worried about the Kazakh language. So I would say that I did not detect a major difference in feelings between Kazakh and Russian participants. They both expressed some concern about the Kazakh language, and they both groups thought it very important to make sure that enough attention is given to the Kazakh language in this program. And I apologize, but I do not remember the second question.
The second question was on what is the feeling among non-Kazakhs about learning Kazakh?
Well, all of my participants were ethnic Kazakh. Okay. So I did not have any participants who were not Kazakh. So of course everyone with whom I spoke was very much for the idea of having young people in Kazakhstan learn this language.
And another question, I mean, in terms of methodology, I've seen that some participants are asking you in which language you conducted the interviews. I guess that was in Russian, right?
In Russian, right, because I don't know Kazakh, and some of them don't know English, and if they do, not well enough to use it for an interview.
All right. Another series of questions actually is on how was this program to develop multilingualism in Kazakhstan being elaborated? Who worked on this in the government? Would you have some information on that? For example, were there some discussions with some foreign institutes, foreign countries? And another question connected to that is, has any other country in the world experienced this kind of multilingualism policy as proposed by Nazarbayev, with the teaching, for example, of science in English by professors who don't necessarily have the linguistic skills to do that? And the question is actually, what can be learned from these countries? Did that work? What were the successes, issues, or even failures of such initiatives?
Let me start with the last question, the successes or failures. Well, I would say most profound success would, to reiterate, would be that young people in Kazakhstan will have linguistic, or will be proficient in 3 very useful languages. Kazakh, of course, useful or important because this is the language of their country, but Russian and English also are world languages, and knowing them will allow students many more opportunities for travel, study, just even to apply for grants, for example. Failures, though, I would say the perhaps most glaring failure is, it seems to me, the program has not been thought through well enough by those who are trying to implement it. And as I stated, the fact is that learning 3 languages is very difficult for some students, not for all, but for some. And then there is a lack of teachers who can teach these subjects in English. And I think it is unfair to have a teacher who his or her whole life has been teaching in Russian now be told you must switch your curriculum into English. This is not colloquial English. This is not English that one would use, say, to spend a week in Great Britain or the United States. This is a English that is specific to the discipline that they teach. Therefore, they need to know specific vocabulary and be able to convey their ideas so that students understand what they're saying. And I don't think that this has been thoroughly considered by policymakers in Kazakhstan. Sebastian, I apologize. The question you also stated was about foreign investors.
Yeah, no, the question is, was this program on multilingualism, which is currently going on in Kazakhstan, was it inspired by the experience in other countries? I mean, did Kazakhstani political personalities who elaborated this program, did they inspire this program? Was it inspired, by the experience of some other countries in the world? Have you seen in other countries this kind of trilingualism policy?
Honestly, I can only speak about, for example, speak well about this program. It's my understanding that the program was begun not so much based on the experiences of other countries, but more so out of a need for Kazakhstan to become more of a world player, global player, and that would be possible thanks to linguistic knowledge of tomorrow's leaders. And so I think it was developed more out of a need to raise the country up to a more of a global level, and that would be done through language. I don't think it was following some model of another country.
Okay. Thank you. So another question is, how do you see the shift away from Cyrillic in 2024 can affect this Trinity program?
I'm sorry, how do I think the shift?
From Cyrillic. in 2024, Kazakhstan is switching to Latin handwriting. So do you think that this will have an impact on the multilingualism policy?
That's an excellent question, and one that my participants touched on during our interviews. My participants told me that there are certain letters in Kazakh that cannot be conveyed as accurately when they are translated into Latin letters. And so they worry that this will yet be another burden that will be placed on the Kazakh language. And I would add to that there are so many steps that need to be taken to make this program successful. It seems to me that this will yet be another one that will add to the long list of steps which I already enumerated. So I think it will, as I said, be it will be an unnecessary burden that will be placed on the Kazakh language to make it more so that more people can use it, can understand it, can communicate in it.
All right, thank you very much, Jill. Another question is, what is Tokayev's policy on that? Do you feel any changes? I mean, does Tokayev, the new president, endorse totally the policy initiated by his predecessor? And another question, I mean, this multilingualism of policy, of course, needs significant investments in terms of textbooks, to train teachers, etc. So here comes where the connection with the COVID-19 crisis and the impact it will have on the economy. So to what extent do you think that this crisis could have an impact on this multilingualism policy?
I'm sorry, the COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, so the COVID-19 crisis will have an impact on the economy, and to develop this multilingualism policy obviously needs strong, significant investment. So to what extent you think that this crisis could have an impact, the COVID-19 crisis and the potential economic crisis that Kazakhstan will be facing will have an impact on this multilingualism policy?
So yes, as far as the first question you voiced, Sebastian, about the new president's policy, I unfortunately am not sure what his policy is, so I'm not able to speak to that question. As far as the financial impact on the country due to the COVID-19 crisis, and how this will further impact the Trinity Languages Program. I think right now it's hard to know exactly how much more damage the COVID-19 crisis will inflict upon Kazakhstan's economy, but I do fear that that money that perhaps would have been channeled into funding the Trinity of Languages program will need instead to be channeled into dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic that we have. So I think that it could mean less funding for the program, and even less chance then that it will be successfully implemented. So I have my fears already that it will be successfully implemented, and now I fear that even more because of a lack of resources that will need to be channeled into a different direction than had been perhaps initially planned.
All right, thank you, Jill. Another question is, how will this new knowledge of English in the long term impact Kazakhstani people's outlook on the world, and also expand opportunities and their experience in using English language media? What do you think of that?
Well, again, um, I don't want to be a pessimist, but right now I have doubts that the program will be successful if the steps that I enumerated are not implemented, and that will mean then the program, the people, future leaders' knowledge of English will not be up to par. Perhaps it will not be at the level it should be. I hope it is, but if many steps are not taken to improve the program, it won't be there. However, let's be optimistic and think that tomorrow's leaders of Kazakhstan will have excellent proficiency in English thanks to this program. This will impact, said Sebastian, on their knowledge of the media.
Yes, and on how the people, how Kazakhstani people view the world. I mean, their view on the world, on politics, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, with proficient English, more people will be able to, perhaps want to, and thus be able to travel abroad and be more, let's say, in tune with different types of worldviews the more they go abroad. So I would argue that this proficient knowledge of English will allow for an expanded worldview, greater understanding of other countries, cultures, peoples, and just general, more general, more general understanding of what is happening today in other countries, thanks to their ability to, say, read online news in English, understand news programs in English. So all of this will be very beneficial, I would say, to people's worldview.
Oh, okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have plenty of questions actually on the differences between rural and urban areas. So the question is, first, did you conduct some interviews in rural areas to see if you got some different responses in rural areas, or do you know if the government has conducted any pilot programs with teaching in 3 languages in the rural areas? And if yes, I mean, what were the results?
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, no, I did not get to any rural areas. I was only in Almaty. As far as the government having conducted any research in rural areas, for example, teachers or students, my participants stated that they felt that the government of Kazakhstan had kind of ignored, shall we say, teachers and students in rural areas, which led me to believe that no research, or very little, shall we say, research had indeed been conducted with teachers and students in rural areas. They stated that this was kind of, in their opinion, a forgotten area, that concentration or focus had been placed on students and teachers in urban areas solely. Sebastian, if I could interject a comment too about.
Sure, absolutely, Jill. Yes, you're welcome.
About speaking about a school in Almaty, where the Trinity of Languages program has been in effect now for several years. One of my respondents was asked to be on a committee to go and visit and listen to students who are proficient in English, Russian, and Kazakh. And she was there as the person who was rating their knowledge of Russian, and she told me that it was really quite amazing to listen to these students who were able to switch from Russian to Kazakh, then to English. And she said that, in her opinion, then the Trinity Languages Program does indeed have the potential to be successful. But this, in my opinion, perhaps is a little bit skewed, because it's possible that only the strongest students were invited to speak, to present to this committee. And as far as I know, no such events were held in rural schools, so only in urban ones. So it's only in urban schools where we can see the effects of the Trinity of Languages program, not in rural ones.
All right, thank you, Jill. Another question again, actually, on ethnic minorities or related to ethnic minorities is how will the schools, for example, with Uzbek language, be involved in this program? What is the government? How the government is taking that into consideration?
I apologize, but ethnic minorities was the subject that did not come up at all with my respondents.
No.
And this is something that unfortunately I'm not able to address.
Okay, no problem, Jeff. Another series of questions I have is on the status, the impact on the status of Russian language with this multilingualism policy. For example, I have a question where we think that some linguists see the marginalization of Russians rather than Kazakh as the most likely outcome of this Trinity language policy and the shift away from Cyrillic in the coming years. So do you see any evidence of this among your research? And a more general question I have received to it is actually, what is the future of the Russian language in Kazakhstan? Do you think that it will continue to be the lingua franca or the language for official documents? I mean, how do you see the future of Russian language in Kazakhstan based on this multilingualism policy?
So speaking about the marginalization of Russian, I have to agree with my respondents who stated that just because students are learning subjects in one language, for example, Kazakh, this does not mean that they will have then this will negatively impact their knowledge of Russian. So I do not see Russian as being marginalized. Again, speaking about urban areas, it's, I think, an important distinction to make, that what happens in the situation in urban areas is different than in rural. I cannot speak to rural areas, unfortunately. The future of the Russian language based on the Trinity of Languages program, again, speaking about urban parts of Kazakhstan, I think there's definitely more focus now on the Kazakh language, and it's been noticeable in the past few years. But I still think that there are so many people who, for whom Russian is their preferred language of communication, that I do not see, for example, Russian fading into the background in the future. I think that Russian and Kazakh as languages have a healthy relationship. I don't think that they're competing against one another. And I don't think that Russian will kind of be thrown away in the future because of the Trinity of Languages program. I think it's important to emphasize that students learn say, for example, history in Kazakh, we'll say computer science in English, and mathematics in Russian. So it's not as though they are taught a language that they will never use in the Russian language, no. Or taught a subject that they never use in Russian. They are taught subjects that are all important in different languages. So I don't think we can say that the subject that is taught in Russian is unimportant or insignificant or something that will never be useful in their lifetime. No, not at all. And so I think in this way we have to remember that the languages are all given weight in the curriculum.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question is that we have seen since last year some nationalist circles claim that Russian language should not be an official language anymore in Kazakhstan, and I guess that such circles disapprove such policy. So have you heard about any kind of mobilization of nationalist circles against this policy of multilingualism in Kazakhstan?
I have not heard of such circles. I am not surprised that they exist, but no, this is not something that I have heard of, nor was it a topic that came up during my discussions or my interviews with my participants.
Okay. And another question is that, well, last year, we had a paper published on our website by a Kazakh scholar, Juldis Gazinova. And the paper showed that the government conducted a test among 3,400 professors. And the test revealed that less than 15% of teachers had a professional command, actually, of the language they are supposed to teach in. Well, this test was conducted in 2016, so which means that, of course, these figures might have improved a little bit since then, but at the same time, they are unlikely to have changed significantly. So the question is, isn't the Kazakh government worried about some potential backlash of this policy with, for example, an improvement of students' command of foreign language, such as English, which could be well below the expectations, and at the same time, a degradation of student skills, for example, in maths, in natural science, or in any other subject taught?
I'm sorry, Sebastian. Could you rephrase that a bit? It was a little bit long.
No, sorry. Yeah. No, the question is that don't you think that the government is also worried that by, for example, trying to have natural sciences and maths taught in English by professors who don't have a good command of English, that first it would not necessarily improve the language skills of students, and at the same time it could also have a negative impact on the skills of the subject of students in the subject taught. For example, let's take the example of when maths are taught in English. What can be the impact if first the teacher doesn't have a good command of English, and if students don't have a good command of English, first it won't necessarily improve their skills in English, but at the same time it could even worsen their skills in maths or in any other subject taught in English.
Precisely. And that is why one of the points that I made in my presentation is that the government needs to take definite steps to enable teachers of the sciences in Kazakhstan to improve their command of English. If they don't, then yes, exactly what you mentioned right now is what we're going to see. Not only will students not learn the subject in English, but in fact, they may their knowledge may even become weaker because they don't understand what is said to them. So one of these suggestions my interviewees made was to have either these teachers of sciences go on, for example, sabbaticals to study in English-speaking countries, study the lexicon, learn the lexicon of their subject in, say, Great Britain or in Canada, United States. Or if that is too expensive and they do not have time for this, then the government of Kazakhstan should bring teachers of the sciences from English-speaking countries to Kazakhstan to help them learn lexicon. So there needs to be some kind of proactive steps taken to help these teachers learn English. I cannot stress that enough because, right, this is a completely foreign language for these students in Kazakhstan. And to think that a teacher who has taught physics their entire life in Russian, Kazakh, whatever, can suddenly switch and start teaching it in English, this is absurd. This is ludicrous. And if something is not done to help these teachers learn English or improve their English, then right, the effect will be negative instead of positive. It will be, we say, it will backfire.
And have you heard about some discussions within the Kazakh government with maybe some ministers or some high-level staff, people working in the government disagreeing with this policy? Have you heard about any discussions on that?
No, in fact, it seems to me that all discussion about the Trinity of Languages program has kind of come to a standstill, and it's not a hot topic like it had been before, one that is highly discussed. Perhaps that's because the COVID-19 virus has now taken over, and it is a more important topic to focus on. I'm not sure, but it seems to me that the government of Kazakhstan has, as of late, stopped paying the necessary amount of attention to the Trinity of Languages program.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
I was going to go again this summer to do more research, but instead I had to stay away because of the virus.
For obvious reasons, yes, of course. I mean, we're coming to the end of the event. Unfortunately, we will have to end. Maybe just two short and very precise questions. Do you know in how many schools so far teaching in these three languages have been introduced? And what do you have any information about the budget for the implementation of this policy?
Oh, unfortunately, I have to answer negatively to those. I do not know how many schools have implemented the program in the country, and I'm also unfamiliar with the budget that it has. Again, that information was some that I had had in the past, but I do not have the updated figures again because I was not able to go back this summer. So I'm going to apologize for that and say I'm not sure.
No problem, no problem at all. And maybe just to finish on the current context with the COVID-19 crisis, did you get information whether the government is, for example, trying to develop language courses to develop, to improve this multilingualism policy?
I have not heard. Actually, there are not classes are being conducted online there or not. I do know that American students who went to or who would have physically gone to Kazakhstan to take courses are taking them online instead but as far as what Kazakhstani students or students in Kazakhstan are doing, I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
No problem. Well, in any case, okay, it's 11 now. We unfortunately, very unfortunately, have to end this event. Thank you so much, Jill, for your very interesting presentation. It's an extremely important topic that we will have to look at in the coming years. So thank you so much, Jill, for being with us today. And thank you to everybody who participated today, who listened to you and who sent very excellent questions. And we look forward to seeing you, or at least hearing from you in the next Central Asia program event. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Sebastian, and thank you to everyone who joined us today, and have a good day as well. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.